We would like to start sharing true paranormal stories here on our YouTube channel. We've sourced the stories from a variety of sources, online, friends, family, and some from our listeners. Tonight's stories are all focused around Kentucky, or instances that have a link to Kentucky. So sit back and enjoy the show. When my grandfather and grandmother were first married, sometime around early 1900s, they lived on a farm in Kentucky. This farm, it seems, housed more than your normal farm animals. At night, in the attic, you could hear large pieces of furniture being moved back and forth across the floor, very rapidly. Needless to say, they wouldn't bother to check it out until daylight. But when they did, nothing at all was in the attic. It was completely empty. Out back of the house, there was a woodpile, where all the wood for heating and cooking was stacked. Very late at night, you could hear someone or something out there chopping wood. The morning's investigation showed my grandfather's axe in the exact same spot as he had left it the day before, and not a single stick of wood out of place. One night my grandfather felt especially brave. This courage was brought on by some homemade moonshine. So when he heard the commotion at the woodpile, he stood up on the porch and yelled, "Chop, you S.O.B., chop!" Well, apparently the thing heard him. It began to chop faster and faster and faster, to the point where it was chopping at an inhuman rate of speed. My grandfather hightailed it into the house, grabbed his shotgun, and sat up scared, out of his wits, for the rest of the night. It goes without saying that my grandfather never teased it again, at least while they lived there, which wasn't very long. Only my grandfather and my grandmother lived on the farm. At the time, they had no children nor hired hands working on the farm, to account for these strange happenings. I live in Bellevue, Kentucky, in Campbell County. I belong to Bellevue Fire Department. Approximately 10 years ago, a fire chief passed away in our upstairs barroom. The chair he died in is still there. I think everyone is a little worried about getting rid of the old chair, due to the strange things that happened there. Ironically enough, only one incident has happened outside of the upstairs area. The ghost only seems active upstairs. When watching TV, you will hear someone walking towards you from the back of the bar area, and then just stop. The sounds are distinct footsteps. Lights and air conditioners will routinely turn themselves on and off for no apparent reason. The only downstairs incident happened in the engine room. Our pumpers have federal sirens that sound like air raid sirens. They have a constant bell. In order to activate them, turn the batteries on, and then push a pedal on the floorboard. The longer the pedal goes, the louder and longer the siren will roll. One night, at 3 in the morning, one of the federal sirens began wailing as loud as it could, and it wasn't long anymore. Obviously, the shift on duty flew out of bed and down to the engine room. One firefighter said, "Let's walk up on each side of the truck and catch whoever is doing this." As they approached the doors, they jerked them open at the same time, only to find no one in the truck. Also, simultaneously, as the doors opened, the siren began wailing down. The firefighter on the driver's side said he noticed that the batteries in the truck were still turned in the off position. To this day, that incident is unexplainable. No one pushed the pedal in the truck, and there's absolutely no way for the siren to work without the batteries. We have now had 2 experiences with ghosts. The first time was in Kentucky. We lived in an apartment, and it started about 3 months after I became pregnant with my first child. I would be standing at the sink and feel a tug on the back of my shirt, or the lights would flicker, just every now and then. I blew it off, thinking it was probably nothing, and then I started hearing distinct footsteps, sometimes upstairs, sometimes coming down the stairs. I was the only one in the house at the time. A short time later we got a dog. I noticed that no matter how much you begged, it would not go into our spare bedroom. This room was always noticeably cooler than the other rooms in the house. One night I walked into the spare room, and there was an ink pen laying on the dresser, and it started spinning in circles. That's when it really began. At night I'd be awakened by noises. Our room was right next to the spare room. I would hear someone walk across the floor and come right up to me, yet no one was there. We had hardwood floors, so footsteps were very easy to hear. One day I was in the kitchen peeling potatoes. The coffee maker came on. It wasn't plugged in. The knife that I had been using was laying about 4 feet from me, and started sliding across the counter at me. One night, as me and my husband were sitting in the living room, I felt my hair being pulled. Next, it pulled a handful right from the top of my head and dropped it on the floor in front of me. I would feel someone touch me as I was in the shower, but my husband would be at work, and there was no one else in the house. Then I started having dreams. They were about a man. He had red eyes, and he was sitting behind a candle. I would once in a while catch the glimpse of a newspaper, but I couldn't make out the headline. I would hear a woman named Julie talk to me. She would warn me to go, that I was in danger. She was always very sad, sometimes even crying. After several weeks I dreamed more and more, sometimes unable to wake up easily in the morning. The dog would have unexplainable barking spells, as if he saw somebody. I figured out that the man in my dreams, our ghost, had killed his wife Julie, after they had lost their baby. This was the headline on the newspaper. Evidently, because I was pregnant, he didn't want me to have a child either. I was given a cross that had been blessed by a priest, and the hair pulling and touching stopped. The noise in the spare room, however, didn't. One night we knew it was in the room. We closed the door, hung a cross in the doorknob. It evidently trapped it there. The noise was so bad at times that we'd end up sleeping downstairs on the floor. Later, my husband went into the room and burned some sulfur. I heard screaming from clear downstairs, and it left. All was normal. My husband was able to feel the presence of a spirit, and knew that this spirit had gone. The second time was in Colorado, actually just a few days ago. It was about November. I started catching a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye. I figured maybe it was my daughter, who is now 3. She was always on the move. We left for vacation on the 17th of December, and we were gone for 15 days. When we returned, my daughter would say that she had been in her room playing with a little boy. I assumed this was her boy baby doll, or an imaginary friend. A few nights ago, she had been in bed for about a half an hour, and she came into our room screaming as white as a sheet. She said that there was a boy ghost in her room, and it was getting in her bed. It had told her it was mad that she had left for so long. I walked right in her room, hoping to prove her wrong. I walked around the corner, and there was this little boy, appeared to be maybe 3 years old, standing in front of my daughter's closet. It made the awfulest face, and it was dripping wet. My first reaction was to throw things at it. Big mistake. That just made it more mad. It disappeared, and my husband came in. We exited the room, and my husband came into the living room and sat down at the computer. He got an uneasy feeling, and the hairs on his neck and arms were standing straight up. He said, "Okay, it's here beside me." My daughter was shaking, and let me tell you, I was not far from a nervous breakdown. It continued to bang on the walls, scream, and move things in my daughter's room. My husband hung a cross from a string right in the doorway after he went back into her room, and it didn't come out. That night I didn't get much sleep. Between the 3-year-old and the 10-month-old waking up, screaming, and all the noise in my daughter's room was rather nerve-wracking. The next day it screamed louder than any child I've ever heard. Someone told me to confront it, and talk to it, and ask it who it was and what it wanted, and then ask it to leave. It just appeared to Pat. I started questioning my daughter about it, asking if she had seen it before, and she said, "Oh, yes. He plays with me sometimes and tries to sleep in my bed at night." She said that he got mad when she wouldn't let him stay in her bed, and he scared her, which in turn made her come out of the room screaming. She told me that it had taken some of her toys, and she couldn't find them. Anyway, my mother-in-law sent a little poem, and said to put bay leaves in the four corners of the house to keep the spirits out. The poem involved putting a drop of olive oil on the door frame, and saying that by the power of God we want all evil banished from here. We haven't heard it since. We found my daughter's toys at the top of her closet. There's a town near my home in Frankfort called Millville. Now this town is one of the oldest in Kentucky, and has a very dark history. I have been told that this was a place of racial lynching and harassment. There are many myths and rumors about this place, and my friends and I have wandered through these places many times. I've actually only had one experience, though. It was a Saturday night, about 3 o'clock or so. My friend and I had been partying that night, and decided that we were not ready to go home. So we drove out to the distillery that's supposed to be haunted. One of my co-workers had dated a guy whose father owned the place. His dad had let him live in one of the old warehouses up there. She asked him about all the rumors, and he said he had never seen anything, but that he would often hear voices and things scooting around. My experience was not at the distillery. It was at this big, red building that looked like an old courthouse or something. I have been told that it was later used for the distillery as an office, but has long since been abandoned. We pulled up into the large parking lot to turn around. As we were getting ready to leave, one of my friends noticed a light, and yelled for me to stop my car. I did, and backed up so that we could see better. We looked through one of the very large windows where the glass had been broken out, and sure enough, there was a very dim blue light coming from the back room, almost like a light from a TV. Now, mind you, there's no electricity in this building. Hadn't been for a long time. So we sat there quietly trying to figure out what it was. Sometimes I thought I could see a movement, but you can never really be certain. We may have been sitting there for 5 minutes when something went right across the window. It was very dark, and didn't have any type of form. You couldn't really call it a shadow, because it had substance. I know it wasn't human, though. My friends and I looked at each other, screamed our heads off, and every time I screamed, I hit the gas pedal. My car kept lurching forward. It was almost comical. It wasn't funny at the time. I'm embarrassed to say that at 19 years old, I had bladder failure that night. I really have no idea what that was. But we have been back since, and have never seen anything else. I will never forget this. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the stories tonight. Please like us, subscribe, and don't forget to check out our podcast, Haunted Family Podcast. We are a weekly podcast about true crime, unsolved mysteries, and paranormal. Thanks for listening. Bye.